Everybody, and welcome to California Free Radio. I'm Mike Netter, accompanied as I am every week by Scott Piotr and Kurt English. We're
Hey.
going to have an interesting show this week because we have Assemblyman Josh Hoover coming on in a few minutes. And in case you're not paying attention, there is big breaking news right before this show on two fronts. One is a federal judge put a temporary restraining order on Donald Trump's ability to use the National Guard in California. We'll get back to that. And for those of you paying attention to world news, and we focus on California, Israel is now bombing Iran. And so smartly, the Trump administration did remove all essential personnel, if you will, from Iraq and nearby countries this week. So keep up, follow me. We're watching the show on @NetterMike on the X feed, on LinkedIn, where you could find me under Mike Netter, Scott Piotr at TaxFighter7, and of course on our Facebook groups, Rebuild California and the California Patriot Coalition, along with our real name. And if that isn't enough for you, let me add, the show is replayed and everywhere on our Outrage channel. I'm going to open with a rant, but we're going to start off with a video this week because if you've been following, I'm sure you have, what is going on in Los Angeles as the federal government simply tries to do its job. And let me stress again, they're doing its job, which is what the people of the United States voted for. Now, for all of you out there, I apologize for this offensive video because it does contain Karen Bass. Dan, hit it.
I just have to say that if you dial back time and go to Friday, if immigration raids had not happened here, we would not have the disorder that went on last night. I will tell you that it is peaceful now, but we do not know where and when the next raids will be. That is the concern because people in the city have a rapid response network. If they see ICE, they go out and they protest. And so it's just a recipe for pandemonium that is completely unnecessary. Nothing was happening here. Los Angeles was peaceful before Friday.
Do you think the National Guard is needed now?
No, I don't think the National Guard is needed now. Things in LA are calm. I will tell you that I'm saddened by the extent of the vandalism in the form of graffiti all through the downtown area.
Now, everyone out there, I want to start off by reminding you the importance of what we do here, and we're going to talk a little bit about that when Josh Hoover comes on tonight. Why Karen Bass is yapping about, hey, everything's okay in LA and we have a rapid response system. For those of you out there wondering, how is that rapid response system funded? It's actually partially funded by the federal government, by Mayorkas and Karen Bass and the state government. And for those of you out there, my whole Netter News newsletter today was on who's funding this. Gentlemen, I was out of town this week, but did you spend any time watching Fox News?
We did. Yeah. It was one of those weekends.
And Fox News this week, Alex Michelson had a very interesting point. As a truckload of bionic masks showed up in Los Angeles, and as one of the reporters on the street asked, it's a little bit strange that all these signs seem manufactured. And did you guys see the ad that was on Craigslist this week?
No. Which one?
Oh, let me tell you, that's all over too. Craigslist is advertising. And by the way, I wish I gotten in better shape for an old guy, gentlemen. They're actually advertising for $12,000 a week for hired thugs for the left. And this is not embodied. It's not made up. This is on Craigslist for literally hired guns. So the rapid response system is actually being funded by the left through NGOs, through the government. Now, I want to start off with a little lesson.
Oh, 12,000 a week?
12,000 a week.
Where do I apply?
Well, I tried to apply.
Like real money.
They don't want old skinny.
You apply at George Soros's office.
You mean I'm not the right color? They're into discrimination?
Well, no, we just have to be large. Bring in Josh Hoover here. I want to bring in, we have a state assemblyman on this week, and I'm honored to have him on. Josh Hoover, I think he's coming on here in a second. Josh,
hey
You almost look like you should be out there protesting.
I
Welcome
know,
to
man. I know.
California Free Radio. Listen, I started off, if you didn't hear the beginning of the rant here, talking about why not only what you're doing in the state assembly is important, but literally the importance of podcasts and what I call We Are the Media now. Hold on, I know you're esteemed state assemblyman, but it's my house, brother, and I'm going to rant for 1 second here, okay? I know Josh pretty well, so I can give him a little bit of flack, okay? The reality is this, that I was one of the first ones this week, and I want to give everybody a quick lesson out there. When you see a quote in the LA Times by a group who's happened to get a quote in the newspaper or CNN, Google that name and put the word funding after it. And as I put out in Netter News this morning, the CHIRLA, which is basically funded by the communist organization, and no kings you'll find, the funding comes not only from the federal government under Mayorkas, but has come from the state itself. Josh, we're going to talk about your podcast a little bit here tonight, but I want to stress to everybody out there that the grassroots media of the people is pretty important. And our producer is commenting, Josh, on your beard. You do look, remind me a little bit of the revolution, which we're developing right now in Cuba.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping not to see guys hop over to your fence in fatigues.
He just needs a big cigar. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. This is Scott Piotr, by the way, and Kurt English. You have met yet. Kurt's got about 1,700 degrees. Josh, introduce yourself a bit to our audience who don't know who you are. I met you probably, 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Yeah.
When you're working in Kevin Kiley's office, and you're now a state assembly person. And tell us where at and what you do.
Well, it's great to be with you guys. It's great to meet everybody. Obviously, Scott, good to see you again. I know we've talked in the past. State Assembly member Josh Hoover, representing Northeast Sacramento County in District 7 of the State Assembly. Honestly, what I do lately is kind of manage some of the craziness that's going on in Sacramento, trying to be a voice of common sense in sort of the morass that is the state capitol. But, it's obviously this is an interesting episode because it's been a crazy couple weeks, and Newsom, I would say, is on a very he's in a new place right now in terms of even for Newsom. So it's been really interesting to watch this unfold, but it's great to be with everybody and excited to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about relating to policy or the legislature or politics. So excited to be here.
Well, let's talk. I want to ask Scott and do somebody to weigh in. Really in the state assembly, is there, even from the Democrats, and I say there's the crazy left and there's logical Democrats, but is there any talk in the hallways? It's like, this isn't going to work out well for us in the long run, going against the federal government. And also the fact, that these raids, they're pulling off people with felony convictions again. They're not pulling off Mama Rosarita making tacos. They're pulling off people that are some pretty bad Andres. Is anybody talking about that?
Yeah, it's been honestly fascinating talking to some of my legislative colleagues on the other side of the aisle, because it's just like they're living in a completely different world, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
Trump even today came out and talked about how they might be releasing some guidance on, farm workers and hotel workers. They're not trying to go after the people that aren't criminals, right? But I think there's this perception that, like, the fear that is being stoked by the left, that they're just going after anyone and everyone indiscriminately, is just absolutely ridiculous and patently false. And by the way, I didn't realize Newsom was going to be joining us there, Scott. That's pretty cool. You got him behind you there. So
He likes to breathe down my neck,
Yeah, exactly. But it's like they're living in a different world, and the president is coming off as the common sense guy right now, and the Newsom and Padilla and all these people are coming off pretty unhinged. It's really been wild to watch, honestly.
What do you think of what Padilla did today? Everybody out there, there was so much breaking news right before the show. They gave a temporary restraining order against Trump for the National Guard. Israel decided to bomb Iraq, which is outside the scope of our show. But if you see me duck, oops, they missed. I want to be clear. And just what, what is the, what's the word I'm looking for here even? What's the reality of any logic at all in the state assembly as to how this is going? I mean, is anybody even asking about the funding, which we opened the show? You were a little bit tardy coming to us, which I understand. But I mean, the funding that we're giving for this literally like almost terrorism taking place in the streets. Is anybody asking, hey, why are we doing this?
Well, we're asking about it. I mean, the Assembly Republican Caucus has been really vocal on this. I know Carl DeMaio has been banging the drum on this, really saying, groups like this group, Churla, if you guys have talked about them
We
at
just
all.
reported that in Netter News today, which I know you get, Josh. It's free.
I mean, it's absolutely crazy. We have sent millions and millions of taxpayer dollars to these groups, these nonprofit groups that are really, coordinating these protests in a lot of ways. A colleague of mine, Kate Sanchez, Assemblywoman Kate Sanchez, just called yesterday for an audit of all of these groups, because it's absolutely ridiculous that state taxpayer dollars are going to fund groups that are coordinating these protests and this violence in LA. It's absolutely unacceptable, and there's just it needs to be called out, and I feel like it's sort of a story that has been overlooked by the mainstream media, but it's really important that we're talking about it.
Hey, Josh, I want to jump in. You're talking about the money. Obviously, following the money is the important thing to do. If you shut off their money, I mean, our producer Dan just flashed the website nokings.org, which is their side. They're organizing 1,000 protests in 1,000 cities. Well, you can't organize 1,000 protests in 1,000 cities without some manpower and some money. So following the money is a big deal. California, I'm presuming if they gave a grant to somebody, Churla or whoever, that it had strings attached. There was a contract.
Yeah.
They were obligated to use the money for a certain, purpose. And I don't think it was buying bricks and concrete for their so-called peaceful protests. So, do you guys have, as a minority? I know you guys only have 20 members out of the 80. Do you have any kind of power from a legislator position to audit those contracts? And I mean, the big question is, can someone go to jail for this?
I mean, that's a good question. I think on the audit side, the thing is we can call for an audit, but it requires an approval of the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, which is 12 members of the legislature, most of them Democrats. We would need 7 of them to vote for this. So I fully support what my colleague is doing, but we would need to get some Democrats on board with that. I think that is really the big question right now.
Can we shame them in doing that?
I mean, we can try. I mean, but unfortunately, a lot of this is very shameless, right? I mean, we have, James Gallagher has been out there all week this week calling out some of this craziness, really being a leading voice on, I think, for common sense. And unfortunately, Newsom and Joe Patterson, by the way, my colleague in Placer County, but Newsom, he sees this as a political opportunity. He sees this as an opportunity for him to get an incredible amount of media attention on national news, fighting the Trump administration and positioning himself to run for president. And I think that's really all that he cares about right now.
But
wait.
go ahead.
I cannot lie. Newsom is obviously a media hog, and he's an incompetent administrator. We know that. But don't you think that most of the people across the country are going to look at this? Yeah, certainly in the blue areas of whatever state you're in, they're going to sit there and go, yeah, he's championing the little guy. But most of the other people are sitting there going, we don't want what's happening in California to be in our state or across the nation. Like hell if I'm going to vote for him. So it seems like he's playing to his base, which will help him get the nomination. But there's no way he can win the presidency because most normal thinking people don't want what's happening in California to happen in their state. Has anybody thought about it? I mean, obviously Newsom hasn't.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. Newsom thinks he's winning right now. And I think the problem, in fact, there was some new PPIC polling that came out today I think it was in the high 50s of people that now oppose free healthcare, for example, for undocumented immigrants. The polling is really starting to shift on this issue, even in California. He thinks that he's winning on this topic, but I think this could be sinking his chances to even become the nominee, because he's embracing in some ways, the violence that is going on in Los Angeles, and I think it's really going to backfire on him when it's all said and done.
I agree.
One of our viewers says meth. Yes, it might be. I want to go back to something that's kind of the theme, and Josh, why we had you on tonight, because for everyone out there, I think one of the things that will sink Newsom, and frankly we have depended, and again, Josh, if you haven't noticed, is a lot younger than I am, and those of us of a certain age like mine grew up with what we call the mainstream media, which is this would listen to turn it on CNN or even Fox or whatever. And we've hit this polarizing point where it's a left channel, a right channel, but not a truth channel. And nobody wants to expose anything. Josh, you and I met when you were working with one of the most outspoken politicians ever, which is Kevin Kiley, okay? And we met Kevin Kiley because of the grassroots of the recall of Gavin Newsom, which we got what I work for, Rebuild California. And the reason is, like with the publication I put out, Netter News, like with this podcast, we now have the ability to start get these underlying stories out, like the funding. We don't have to wait for Gavin Newsom to have a press conference. In fact, Gavin Newsom has caught on to that, though he doesn't have any listeners, by doing his own, I can't even say it. This is Gavin, is that what it's called? And you're actually starting your own too, being able to bring the voice of a state assembly person to the people. First off, have you lost your friggin' mind? It's a lot of work, but let's go into that later. Tell us about
It is a lot of work.
Podcast. Yes, I know, Josh. I've been doing that for 6 years and hoping to find a desert island somewhere, but I haven't yet. So tell us about yours and why the hell are you doing it?
So shortly after I got elected in 2022, so I guess early or the first half of 2023, I decided to start a podcast, it's called Point of Order, the Point of Order podcast, really giving people an inside look about what's going on in the state legislature and California politics. Generally speaking, I think like you guys do it, we like to have guests on the show. I never do solo shows because I really find that having conversations with other people is a lot more fun. So generally speaking, we have other legislators on the program, but we've also had some other folks on as well. And I really just think that podcasting is the new way to really get our message out to people. I really want to use it to communicate. I send it to my constituents every week. I also, it's kind of become a thing that's listened to in the Capitol community on what's going on in Sacramento behind the scenes. And I just think it's really important. The mainstream media, in so many ways, people have lost faith in it. People are sick of the bias that comes from the mainstream media. They want to get access to other perspectives, and I think that's where podcasting can be a really great tool. And that's why we decided to jump in and start the Point of Order podcast, even though it is, Mike, to your point, a lot of work to put together. But we record a couple episodes a month and really try to let people know what's going on.
And I was going back and forth.
Well, Josh, to your point, podcasts are now more popular than Spotify or Pandora music listing.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me.
So you're going to go out this weekend and try to find a protest, join them live, take your camera and live stream it?
I think it might be hard for Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff. I want to hear this.
It's not a bad idea, Scott. It's not a bad idea. I mean, that would get a lot of views probably, but no, generally we're in a studio. But yeah, that's a good idea.
You can take Padilla with you. He sounds like he's got an in for it.
He's got Padilla might want to do that, something like that. I think one of the things to note, I started off saying is, look, Josh, you know me a long time, and I'm kind of an idiot. Let's be real here. And I do some pretty simple stuff. And for everyone out there, when I talk about Netter News, we have almost 95,000 subscribers now. For everyone out there, that's more people than watch CNN, which we opened our show, Karen Bass, watching in any given week. And it's pretty simple. And I want to give you this thing too. I don't know if you caught the beginning or not. When you see the name of one of these groups like Churla or wherever it's called quoted, okay, if you have the ability to use this finger, and because we try to keep it a family show, don't use this finger, use this finger, okay? Highlight the name, put it into Google, and put the word after it, funding, and you'll find out who these groups that are quoted by the LA Times and CNN are actually getting their funding from. It's not that hard today, people, and you can feed it to people like Josh, who has 2-day jobs with the state assembly, and start putting it out there so we can get the word out. And I think that's why I found it fascinating in what you're doing. I mean, frankly, our buddy Kevin Kiley, who I'm not trying to stroke Kevin, but I always say, put out this. He started putting out a newsletter a long time ago, and I asked him on a long ago show, it's like, how do you write those? I write that myself.
Yep.
I'm not that talented, but he gets the word out, and that got him to Congress. So you're shaping your own media when you do this.
Yeah.
Is that one of your goals, or is it simply to try to become rich and famous?
Well, it's definitely not that. If that's the goal, I'm doing it wrong. But yeah, I mean, look, I think you're right. I mean, Kevin started his blog really as a tool to let people know what's really going on in Sacramento, because there's so much misinformation and, just biased media perspectives coming out of Sacramento. And that was kind of the goal of starting the podcast. I also am doing a little blog on X. It's not nearly as, I would say, extensive as Kevin's, but I think that this is what needs to happen, right? We need to be communicating out what's actually going on. And so many times I read a news story, I kid you not, okay? I shouldn't admit this on your podcast, but because it's my local paper, I subscribe to the Sacramento Bee, okay, Mike? And
I have to subscribe to the LA Times. I feel your pain, right?
I don't necessarily recommend it, but I read a Sacramento Bee article this week that literally said that the mainstream media is mostly leans conservative. And I almost fell out of my chair.
They said that with a straight face. Huh?
Yeah, it was one of the most ridiculous things I've read, and that says a lot, right? But it's unbelievable, some of the things I read in these newspapers that are just completely bogus. I mean, 90% of the mainstream media leans left, and
you
so
think that was that an overt lie, or do they actually have a different view of the mainstream media than normal people?
Oh, it was not. I don't think it was intending to be a lie. I think this was their actual perspective, which was unbelievable to me. Right.
So I have a suggestion for you. Good clickbait. I think you should live stream it when you do it. Let's get all of your fellow assemblymen and go fulfill Newsom's wish. Why don't you guys do a citizen's arrest for him for insurrection? What is he doing? Inviting Trump to arrest him. He thinks what? He's going to get that much publicity? He's going to be a martyr? Does anybody really care about him?
I mean, Scott, it's political theater, plain and simple. If you watch the Padilla arrest today, I mean, it's so contrived. He put himself in that position to get himself arrested. This is what he wants. I mean, he wants the attention. It's honestly kind of sad, if you're asking me. It's very desperate. Newsom is trying to play the tough guy because he thinks that it's going to position him for the Democratic primary, in the next presidential cycle. And I just think that I'm actually convinced that a California Democrat cannot win the presidency because we are so far beyond what most Americans feel makes sense. We're so far to the left of what even Democrats in other states think is the right thing that I think it's really going to backfire him in a big way.
I think what's fascinating to me is things like these so-called peaceful protests, which is kind of like saying a boxing match is merely a disagreement. which just strikes me as strange. I mean, you literally have Bass saying this why they're burning Waymo cars, which I'm still a little confused on, but let's not take that up, take too much time. It's like, why would you burn an autonomous car? It doesn't have an opinion. But let's just, I don't want to get too started. I think what a lot of these are, in my not so humble opinion, are really distractions. So we don't, because this is what the press focuses on, right? Padilla storms in a room today, gets arrested, it becomes a headline. In the meantime, the state government every day is passing expletive deleted, trying to keep it a family show, that is raising our taxes. Look, I was up in Northern California meeting with Orrin Heatley this week. You remember Orrin, right? And we pulled over to get gas last night outside of Tahoe. And gas in Tahoe is already $6.69 a gallon, and the tax hasn't hit yet. I get it, it's Tahoe, but it's $6.69. And then we drove across state line, and gas dropped down to $3.50. And I want you to grasp that again, that apparently just in the course of 100 yards, the gas station beside state line is $3 cheaper. And I mean, anybody out there, if you're watching this, well, I know a lot, I don't even know how to put it. These are the things which affect your lives, right? That a fast food worker, it's not that they're making $20 an hour. They don't have a job anymore because they're simply going to lay them off and shut down the restaurants, right?
100%. I actually have pretty close relationships with a lot of the McDonald's owners in my region, and they've shut down a number of their stores or they've automated them. But one way or another, the jobs are actually going away, and it's been a complete failure. It has not helped workers. It's actually hurt workers because there's fewer jobs. It's absolutely unbelievable what the super majority in California thinks is going to actually help people. They're just dead wrong about it.
Fewer jobs and fewer hours.
Yep.
But hey, they feel good about it, and that's all that's important. The Democrats got kudos for it.
Intention over results, for sure. Intention over results.
So, Josh, let's ask a couple things here. I know that you're kind of got out early today, and I want to thank you for coming on here. But we're going to put your podcast and your website across the screen here. I do have one complaint, by the way, on your X feed. You know what that is, don't you? Yeah. What is the complaint? Your other feed or your podcast is not following @NetterMike because I looked it up.
It's not. No, I get all your tweets in my feed. What are you talking about?
Well, yours, but then you have a separate one on your podcast. So, Josh, as much as I support you, okay, you need to make sure that you do, okay? Hey, and Scott, to let you know too, Josh also follows me on LinkedIn where the show is being shown tonight, okay? Scott tells me this every week. Our show goes out on all the major social media. And for somebody like Josh, who's smart and upcoming, I want to stress it's bright. You have to, and I want to give you kudos for doing this. This is one of the reasons I called you and said, hey, we need to put you on here because it's important. You don't get the chance. You represent about, 465,000 people, a pretty good chunk of folks. But you don't get the chance to talk to those folks on a regular basis. And the mainstream media kind of controls what you say, what they hear. And they're not going to give a Josh Hoover a lot of publicity. We are, okay? I know what you stand for, and I know how important is the work that you do every day. I also know that we need to yell from our side loud and clear about these hidden issues. So tell me, you see a couple things in this next assembly session. Give me one or two that you'd like to, you've got a pretty decent audience in front of you right now, because I have at least 3 cousins, and there's a lot more people than that, watching this show. Give me 3 things you'd like to see accomplished, not whether or not you think they can get accomplished. Would you like to see accomplished in this next state assembly session? A couple things in this next assembly session.
Well, look, I think off the top, right? I think you already kind of mentioned it. We have to reduce the cost of living in California. I mean, when you look at every single poll of everyday Californians, that's what they're most concerned about. This state has become completely unaffordable. We can't afford our gas. By the way, you think the gas is high now, which it is. It's the highest in the country, which, by the way, you would think would mean we're driving on the best roads, right? This is one of the things that my colleague, Congressman Kiley, points out a lot. We pay the highest gas taxes in the nation, and yet we drive on the 46th ranked roads for quality in the nation. It's an absolute travesty. But whether it's gas, whether it's energy prices, whether it's grocery prices, regardless of what you're looking, whether it's housing prices, we are paying the most in California, and this really bothers me a lot, especially as I would say one of the younger Californians in the assembly. I want my kids to be able to live in California one day. I don't want them to have to move to other states to be able to buy a house or to afford to live. And so this is one of the things where I just feel like we're failing young Californians. We're failing seniors. We're failing hardworking people in California because we have passed so many policies that have made it so expensive to just exist in the state of California. And the Democratic Party likes to talk a lot about working people, but every single policy that they pass does nothing but hurt those same working people that they claim to support. And so I think, to me, that is the number one issue. I'm also a big education guy. We have a big bill going through right now, AB 84, that needs to be stopped. It is an attack on school choice in California, and that absolutely needs to die in the Senate where it currently is sitting. I'm just so upset about our constant attacks on educational freedom in California, and I would say that's another issue where we need a big change. And if I
Hey,
could
Josh,
wave a
quick
magic
question
wand, I
on
would do
AB
that. Yeah.
84. Did any Democrats vote against it?
Okay, so that's a good. I'm pretty sure the answer is no. When I had talked to the Charter Schools Association, and they had told me that they had a few that were willing to vote no. But I will tell you, from what I remember on the assembly floor debate, we had a handful of Democrats get up and express their concerns about the bill, but ultimately ended up either supporting the bill or abstaining on the bill. So I don't remember seeing a Democratic no vote. If there was only a couple. And it was honestly a really sad day, in my opinion, because it's it's an attack on homeschooling. It's an attack on school choice, and honestly, it's not like our schools, our traditional public schools, are doing an amazing job. In a lot of cases, they're failing, and so it was really a sad moment.
Tell our listeners what AB 84 will do if it passes.
So just for those that aren't looped in on AB 84, it's essentially a bill that has been put forward under the guise of creating accountability for charter schools. Now, what the author of the bill will tell you is that the goal of the bill is simply to go after the bad apples. It's to go after the charter schools that have been caught up in some legal issues. I wish that was all that it did, but the reality is that it actually reduces critical funding across the state. My district alone would lose $39 million for its charter schools. What this is going to do is it's going to force charter schools to close. It's going to send people back to their traditional public schools, which is exactly what the teachers union really wants. I mean, this is a bill that is heavily opposed by special interests, including the California Teachers Association. They control a lot of the politicians in Sacramento, and this is one of their Christmas tree wish lists, if you will.
Which I want to jump in with. I find interesting here. Dora has almost comment of the night, and all of them are good. Politicians need more money to launder, because it seems like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but so many of the unions, when you come back to the riots in Los Angeles, the SEIU is up there talking about the riots. The teachers unions stand as a block against education. And it seems the mentality of the Democrats is also, they must vote as a block. How dare they, no matter how illogical or much a bill would hurt their district, they don't vote for the people, they vote for the block. And I want you to tell me if you think I'm full of it, but it seems like there's this union mentality, right?
Yeah.
We carve as a block, what we call communism in general. that way, because some of these bills, it makes no sense for me that the Democrats in the state assembly and Senate vote for them. None.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's really fascinating to me is the California Charter Schools Act was actually passed in the early 90s, and it got bipartisan support. It was actually authored by a Democrat. This was a, charter schools exist in California because a Democrat put forward a bill to create the environment for them to exist. And it obviously got Republican support back then. But it's fascinating to see how far their party has moved away from school choice and just abandoned, options for families simply to appease a special interest that, gives people a lot of political money in California, political campaign contributions. It's
You know,
it's really it's terrible.
those back then, I don't remember the specific arguments that were going pro and con, but I remember that I think the Democrats looked at the school choice bill at that time as being a way to provide choice, but still have them be in a public school, right?
You're 100% right. They didn't want vouchers in California, right?
Right. It was their answer to vouchers.
Yeah. So the Charter Schools Act was a compromise, right, of sorts, where we could provide school choice without allowing for vouchers and just
Exactly.
unlimited parent
So
choice. And
while you were talking,
yeah.
I looked up the vote. There were 25 no's, 11 no vote recorded. The 25, I'm presuming all 20 Republicans voted against it. Some guy named Hoover did. But the PG Norris, my opponent from November, voted no. And
Yep.
I'm not. They don't identify these by parties, so I'm not sure I'm getting the names right. Jeff Gonzalez, is he Republican or Democrat?
Jeff is a Republican.
Republican, I could tell you that.
Yeah. Well, you're not looking at this list. I am.
Well, that's okay. I think it's important to note that to get the word out on stuff like this, Dan, could you run Josh's podcast at the bottom of the screen there? And again, you want access. Thank you, Dan, the producer. He's amazing.
So
Let's go. I want people. Where is your podcast? We call them a podcast, by the way. I want to sound hip, Josh, to a young guy when they have your faces. How do people see it? Do they go to the website? Is it on LinkedIn? Are you blasting out on social media like us? Is it in Times Square on the big TVs? Where do people see it?
Yeah, so if you want to, the main three channels that we have it on is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. But we're also on socials, so you can find Point of Order Pod on Facebook, X, all Instagram, right? But yeah, if you want to listen to the show, you can watch it or listen to it on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, and would love to have you.
Yep. Well, of course, you're going to have me on as a guest sometime soon.
Hey, you know what? That's not a bad idea.
I know it's not. That's why I brought it up, because again,
we got to get you to Sacramento. That I only do in person.
I was just in Sacramento. I just left, but I will come up there. You have my word on it. On my money, I will fly in for the day and I will do a show in person. And you know what? I might even wear a clean shirt, Josh, just for the heck of it. You know?
Just so you don't mind sitting next to him for that long of a time.
Yeah.
Right, that long.
Hey, look, I actually prefer your guys' podcast. I'm usually wearing a suit on mine, so this is a lot more comfortable.
That's okay. I have a suit somewhere around my house. I actually have two of them.
Yeah. So,
Well, Josh, I'm wearing this for Mike.
Yeah. I'm a Padres fan. We'll go.
so how come more assemblymen? How come every Republican assemblyman isn't doing the same thing?
That's a good question. I think everyone's doing things a little differently. Kevin Kiley, who was mentioned earlier, really found success with his blog. I kind of just prefer the podcast space because I like the conversational, aspect of it. But no, I think more should be. In fact, the LA Daily News just published a story about how Democrats are really starting to launch a bunch of podcasts because they feel like that's the way to connect with everyday people. I don't think they're going to succeed in the same way that, conservatives have, because 9 of the 10 biggest podcasts are really more conservative leaning. Newsom's is not in that top 10, by the way. But I do think more Republicans and conservatives should be starting things like this. I would also say, though, that everyone doesn't need a podcast, right? I think in a lot of ways, the space is getting pretty saturated, and I think that's fine. But at a certain point, uh, I always warn people when they say, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast." I say, just know how much work actually goes into it behind the scenes, because you can't just turn on the mic and record.
And Josh, for everybody out there on the square right now, and you can freeze this show. Again, we also have a YouTube channel called Outrage. Don't know why we call it that. Where you can look at this show and you can freeze it and see everything. I think that's your link tree that Dan put up as a way to follow you. And I want to tell for everyone out there too, Josh Hoover is doing something that I'm going to go out and say right now, I wish more Republicans would do. And that's start as understand how the legislature works, start running for a higher office once they understand. He worked for Kevin Kiley. Instead, I have more people every election running for governor than, as I say, than are the cast of the Rockettes who say, hey, I drove a truck, I should be running for governor. The reality is understanding how the sausage is made. I don't know why we say that, but let's roll with that. Okay, I do like sausage. I don't always like the assembly. The reality is you have to understand how government works, and Josh is one of those people that Hoover is successful because he understands it. And I think, too, there are certain people that should be doing podcasts, and you're one of them. And I will go on your show in a clean suit, and we can talk about that. Because I think part of the challenge we have today is people now can see things. You need to understand when you see, why was this bill? What's happening? What's a committee? What's this? What's that? You better understand how government works, because the Democrats, as the supermajority, sure do. And we better understand how media works, because they control a lot of the media, but they can't control our mouths. Josh, I'm going to let you sign off. I know you've had a long day, and the gorillas will be coming over the fence almost any moment here. Leave us with a couple final words here.
Well, I'm really grateful. First of all, thanks for having me on. I'm really grateful to live in an awesome community where we don't have any protests right now, so that's a blessing. But I really appreciate it. Look, I think what you guys have been talking about on your show, and what I'm seeing in the state capitol is just a complete lack of common sense, and I've really tried to bring that. And I think what a lot of my colleagues are trying to doing is just speak into this space that is filled with honestly nonsensical ideas with common sense. And hopefully some of that is getting through. I will say that when I ran for office in 2022, my district was a 6-point Democratic advantage registration district. Today it is I believe, Democratic advantage 3.8%. So it is dropped almost in half in terms of registration. Every single district in California has moved to the right in the last few updates. Things are changing, and we need to stay the course. And I just want to encourage people that are out there fighting the good fight to continue doing that. I've had a number of friends that have told me, we're giving up, we're moving out. And that makes me sad. As much as I complain about the policies here, I love this state, and I'm going to stay here and fight for it. But I do understand the desire to get out. But I really do see things changing in a big way, and I hope people will stay the course and keep fighting, because I think we're moving in a good direction.
We have to keep getting the message out, because, again, our message is sanity. And as the theme of our show is tonight, the insane. Kurt, you said this before we started the show. They're giving us great pub this week by waving another country's flag and burning and attacking Wamos, which I'm still confused on, story for another day. Okay, and looting and rioting and call it what we want. Why we sit there and said, hey, would you like to pay less for electricity, water, and maybe have the criminals out? We have a comment. Josh is from a viewer here. A lot of people appreciate you and thank you. Gentlemen, do you want to add anything before he goes?
Yes, it's good to follow up on the who's paying for the riots. And Josh, we appreciate you putting common sense legislation on the table, even if we get outvoted. We need to fight harder, and that's the thing that has been frustrating from my perspective, is that some Republicans seem to have given up, and so for to your point, if people are going to stay, they
Yeah.
better fight. As Benjamin Franklin said, people get the kind of government
Yep.
they deserve.
Josh,
Well, go ahead.
I'll echo that. You, Asali, and DeMaio have really been guys that have been out there on the point. We lost Bill to a better job. I think he's going to
Yeah.
have more impact there.
I agree.
But I appreciate you standing up to the floor, like you said. Even if you lose all your committee assignments because the speaker has the power to take them away, and he gets insulted because you challenge his superiority. So keep up the good work. We're praying for you guys.
Josh Hoover, thank you very much. I look forward to investigating more and having you enforce who's paying for the riots. But I also would like to go on record and say that when I do come up to Sacramento to be on your podcast, you are paying for lunch. And you heard it here first. Okay. Thank you very
Sounds
much,
good,
brother.
Mike.
Appreciate
Thank you,
you
guys.
coming on. Okay. Remember, follow Josh. The show goes out and I do retweet or repost his stuff on all my medium. Thank you very much for coming on. Now get out while you can before the gorillas come over the fence.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a great one. Thanks for all you do.
Josh.
See you later.
Thank you.
Hey, Josh talked about we are all talking about the whole concept of citizen reporters, citizen media personnel. And, one of the things that was mentioned is that the Dems are sitting there picking up all these podcasts thinking that was what influenced or swayed the election, towards Trump's favor. He went out on all these podcasts. He got to see, people got to see that he was human. He answered in a long-term format. What these Democrats don't realize, this is like talk radio. Whenever the liberals went on talk radio, they failed miserably economically. And nobody would listen to them, just like CNN and MSNBC now. No one will listen to them. They can start a podcast, let them devote all their time, energy, and resources. They can talk to themselves in the closet because no one's going to listen to them because they don't have anything good to say.
And I want to go way back in time because we know that the older voting bloc votes the most. So I want you to remember the more things change, the more they stay the same. And many of you out there, many a year ago, before social media, even before computers, went on CB radio or ham radio like I did in the middle of the night. And the same kind of thing. That was Radio Free America. And to Scott's point, if a ham radio operator sucked, you would not go on his wavelength, you would go to another one. So the reality is we don't suck in the conservative movement. And the only way the left can try to get their word out is by paying people because they don't believe in it. Gentlemen, I'm bowing out early tonight. You're going to have the show all by yourselves next week. God bless you. I will be listening and expect good ranting and raving. I do want to remind everybody out there that to keep us going, contribute to Rebuild California. And we have the QR code up in the corner of the screen. Gentlemen, are you ready to talk some riots uninterrupted?
We're ready.
We've been waiting.
On that note, everyone out there, remember, it's your damn state. And we don't have to pay you to take it back, but they apparently have to pay to take it away from you. On that note, I will see you in 2 weeks. God bless and good night. Carry on, gentlemen.
All right.
Adios.
Thank you for staying with us, everybody. We want to talk about the riots, which has been the big topic this week. Everybody's seeing it on TV. And there's some outrages that you might not even know. But let's start with, what is the law about illegal aliens? Why are there riots and why is there enforcement and why are they deporting people? And Scott, there's a couple of simple statutes here. 8 U.S.C. 1324A 1A, that's federal law. It is a federal crime for any person who conceals, harbors, or shields from detection an alien who is unlawfully in the United States or encourages or induces them to enter. That's a crime for the American that does it.
So that would mean that California is a sanctuary state. The entire state legislature.
Yes, everyone in California's government is violating that federal statute, in my opinion.
Okay, wait a second. Okay, go over the penalty first, and then I've got something I want to bring up.
5 years for knowingly harboring, concealing, or shielding an illegal alien. 10 years if it's committed for commercial advantage, meaning your construction company hires them. because you don't want to pay real wages to American workers. And if the illegal alien that you're harboring commits serious bodily injury, you get a 20-year sentence, and the death penalty or a life sentence if someone dies as a result of your harboring an illegal alien. So, we can make an argument that everyone in the Biden administration that let these people in who killed Jocelyn Nungary, Laken Riley, all the others, should be prosecuted under this statute.
I agree. Okay, so one of the things that came across my X feed this week, I want to put it on the screen now. Go ahead, Dan, bring that up. This was a Minnesota state legislator who admitted that she is, it's only 15 seconds long, that she's an illegal alien. She's an elected official in the state of Minnesota. Can you hear that okay?
Can't hear a thing.
Well, that doesn't work.
But she did admit it, and I've seen the clip. So you're right, Scott. She admitted it absolutely.
Well, and then my next favorite clip, also in the Minnesota state legislature.
Now, what is that thing, Scott? Is that Pat from Saturday Night Live in the early 90s?
Be a woman.
Pat?
This is a man pretending to be a woman who is a state legislator in Minnesota. And he basically, listen to this, it's almost over.
No sound, Scott.
So basically he's saying white people didn't start businesses and build this country. Colored people did. Brown people did. So
well, my family's been here for almost 400 years, and there were no black people in the towns they lived in generation after generation in the 16, 17, 18, and early 1900s. So that's bogus.
Oh, it's outrageous. That is what, I mean, California and Minnesota, it's like they're competing over who could be the most blue and the most liberal.
But what's concerning is this person is engaging in anti-white hate. And that's what we're getting from the left today, anti-white bigotry and hatred. So all these people that talk about discrimination, what I've found in recent years, Scott, is Democrats are who they accuse you of being. They hate what they accuse you of hating, and they do what they accuse you of doing. They're liars.
Yeah. I mean, that's the left's MO on everything. And, just like, Biden would accuse, or let's use the current one, Newsom sits there and accuses Trump of being a dictator when Newsom is the one that wants to be the dictator. Explain to me, Mr. Attorney, how a federal judge that we heard just at the beginning of the show could sit there and say that the commander-in-chief has no right to take control of the U.S. National Guard in California.
Well, he should just declare under the Alien Act and under the Insurrection Act. He declares it. We'll talk about this in a minute. We can skip to it. There's a law called Posse Comitatus. Are you familiar with that, Scott?
No, it sounds like Latin to me.
Well, maybe it is. But basically what it says is, with certain exceptions, that we as a country aren't a third world country, and we don't use our military as policemen inside the country, okay? So the Posse Comitatus Act has exceptions, and the Insurrection Act works with it. Say the general case is you don't have our military patrolling inside the 50 states. However, if Trump invokes the Insurrection Act, that's an exception, and he can deploy regular U.S. military and active duty National Guard in cases of insurrection and rebellion. And I think there's a reasonable case that that's what's going on now.
They're waving Mexican flags, right? They're not waving American flags.
Even worse, the reason these protests are scheduled for this Saturday June 14th, Flag Day, is it's the 250th anniversary of the formation of the American Army, the Continental Army in 1775. So if you're protesting that, you're protesting the existence of the United States of America and all the freedoms we have, and you are evil. And I don't want to be your countryman. If you're not a citizen, I don't want you in my country. I never want you in my country. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want you around, period. You are evil. You are a traitor.
Well, it's the 250th anniversary of the Army. It's Trump's birthday, and it's Flag Day. It's a trifecta. Come on, I mean, you got all the significance, and everybody's got a day off, except, usually these guys don't work anyway, so they have all the days off.
Oh, no, they're paid protesters. They work every day. They get paid to protest. So let's talk about what happened in the Los Angeles riots for people that haven't been following it maybe as much as we do. Violent mobs are attacking ICE agents in Los Angeles. ICE agents are doing raids to arrest and deport illegal aliens. Trump campaigned on this, and he's doing what he campaigned on.
And of course, as the producer puts up the call ICE number, they don't tell the mayor or the governor that they're going to come in and do these raids, because it's a sanctuary state and a sanctuary city, and they would spill the beans in 2 seconds flat. So they can't tell them, they can't cooperate with them, they can't give them warning. They just show up and do it.
Well, Scott, in Chicago, which is a sanctuary city, someone dropped off a pallet of bricks a few moments before an ICE raid was scheduled. So there may be a leaker in the federal government that's tipping them off.
They also, we talk about the sanctuary state. If Karen Bass and Governor Newsom really wanted ICE off the streets, you just forget the sanctuary state business. You sit there, and all of these criminals were in jail. They were released without telling ICE. All ICE has said all along is, just tell us when you're releasing them. We'll wait outside and pick them up. They don't have to go into neighborhoods. They're not picking up every other illegal that happens to be out there with the criminal aliens. They just get the criminals like that, like they said they would. But they don't want to do that. Instead, they want them to go into the neighborhoods. They want them to cause disruption. And I would argue that they really want the violence and anarchy as well.
Well, to your point, Scott, the Los Angeles police chief said officers will not aid ICE agents. So I guess if an ICE agent is being attacked by a criminal, the LAPD is instructed by their police chief to stand by and let it happen, even though a crime is being committed.
In fairness, I heard the official LAPD policy was they were not going to assist ICE in performing their duties of picking up illegals, but if their lives were in danger or the public's life and property were in danger, they would intercede. So they're not going to leave them hanging and watch them die in front of them, to their credit. Not to Karen Bass's credit, she'd probably just as soon see him die. But LAPD is going to stand up for a fellow officer and protect them. But they're not going to assist in the ICE duties, is how I heard
but
it,
the
right?
Democrat politicians, Scott, are encouraging and stoking this dangerous rhetoric against ICE agents that are facing violent mobs, both in Los Angeles and in New York City.
Well, how else do you sit there and explain they're going to have 1,000, cities and protests in those 1,000 cities across the country, other than well-funded, well-organized campaigns using the Los Angeles riots as a starting point to repeat the summer of 2020?
Well, the reason they're doing that is because Trump is being successful and they want to distract. But Trump learned his lesson from 2020. In the good old days, we'd shoot looters and rioters, and we'd deport criminals and illegal aliens. And that's what we need to do. We need to crack down on this criminal behavior, because the rest of us, Scott, have a right to drive down a freeway that we pay for without people dropping rocks on us or blocking the freeway. The rest of us have a right to live in a peaceful country, in a peaceful city. And if we can't do that, our rights are being violated. Our civil rights are being violated, and our government is not preventing people from observing our civil rights. I am sick and tired of the Democrats whining about illegal aliens and wanting their free, cheap slave labor with their maids and their gardeners at the expense of American citizens and the expense of our safety.
Well, and we're the ones paying their freight, right? They're getting all sorts of government handouts, which we pay for, including free medical care in California. Every illegal alien gets free medical care. So, we're paying for this stuff. There was a couple editorials that I read this week that basically are saying, hey, I've had it. I've had enough. As far as I'm concerned, ship out every single illegal alien. Before, it was kind of like, hey, some people are coming here, they're working, they're not criminals, only ship out the criminals. But the heck with that. They're burning the flag. They're all jumping in and saying, yeah, we need to do this. It's kind of like, you're not welcome. All 18 million that came in during the Biden administration need to be shipped out now. I don't care what their
Scott,
job story is. I don't care what
I agree with you. Let's talk about who's rioting. Antifa is paying for these riots and is helping organize the violent Los Angeles riots. The rioters are lighting cars on fire. SEIU's president was arrested. The group that Mike talked about, CHIRLA, sadly is being had been funded by the government. This No Kings organization is funded not only by the Walmart heiress, Christy Walton, but largely funded by the Chinese Progressive Association, who brags on their website that they're pro-Maoist.
Hey, I'm not going to shop at Walmart, thanks to Christine. She's free to espouse her political views, and I'm free to shop someplace else.
Now, think about this. You got the
I'm
son of an American patriot billionaire, Walton, who started Walmart. And so you have some out-of-touch limousine liberal billionaire
daughter
that is trying to impose her mental illness on the rest of us and her stupidity.
Yeah, no, thank you. If you want to go ahead and espouse that, I don't want to fund it. I choose to go someplace else. And I used to purposely go to Walmart to, if nothing else, to give some competition to Jeff Bezos. Screw that noise.
Well, also, it's not just crazy Gavin Newsom, our governor. It's also our crazy lieutenant governor that doesn't like National Guard troops, even though LAPD won't help ICE agents being attacked by criminals. It's not right.
So,
but there was a great counter protest over one of the LA freeways. There's words that they use that I can't repeat on our air.
I think it rhymes with fire truck, right?
Yeah, exactly. And directed toward illegal aliens and rioters. So that was entertaining. Then California sued Trump and Hegsteth over the National Guard deployment. We talked about that. The Marxist mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, blames the federal government. Isn't that just like a Democrat? Blame everyone but the criminals for criminal activity, Scott.
Hey, both Bass and Newsom, Newsom came out with his long-awaited press conference and spent the whole time bashing Trump and blaming Trump. And Bass, of course, picks up the reins and does the same thing. I'm sorry, I didn't see Donald Trump out there causing any riots. I didn't see even ICE causing riots. I see illegal immigrants causing riots. Or, like some people said, a lot of these people are legal immigrants and they just want to get out and riot.
Well, Stephen Miller, a senior advisor to President Trump, said that the threat being made here by Karen Bass is explicit. That the mayor of LA is effectively saying that mob violence is caused by the mere presence of ICE in a city, and that violence against ICE will not stop unless federal law enforcement is withdrawn. That's the definition of an insurrection, according to Stephen Miller. Los Angeles and California leadership are demanding...
That sounds like surrender.
Yeah, or they're demanding the right to import unlimited amounts of illegal aliens into America, to control America's entire immigration policy by fiat, and if they're not permitted, that they're going to attack ICE.
Hey,
Los Angeles and California are demanding nullification of the election results of federal law of national sovereignty and the bedrock of the constitutional command of one national government, Scott. It's outrageous.
Do they also want to include slavery in their constitution like their predecessor? I mean, what they're asking to do, nullification, is basically secede from the union, even if it's on a case by case basis. And that started a civil war last time. Is that really what the Democrats want to do?
Well, it appears that's what they're trying to do this time.
Do
But
they
then
do they
Democrat,
know? Wait a second. Do they know who owns all the guns? I'm just saying.
Scott, that won't matter.
Hey,
They just
if
think
the
they're
National
all the
Guard is given a
patriots.
choice, if the National Guard's given a California National Guard's given a choice, do you want to follow Newsom or you want to follow Trump? How many of those guardsmen do you think are going to say, "Oh yeah, Gavin's my guy"?
Well, there was a councilwoman in Los Angeles, Eunice Hernandez, who was on video this week, who
Yeah, some
encouraged the LA protests to escalate. Did you see that clip?
Oh yeah, some 25-year-old nitwit basically inciting everybody to riot.
Well, she
I-
needs to spend a lot more
she's-
time reading the Constitution and a lot less time eating, Scott, if you've seen it.
She is definitely a wide body. Yes, no doubt about that.
Yeah, but it's not just Los Angeles. In Orange County, the seat of government is in Santa Ana, which is a city in central Orange County.
Right.
And there were protests there opposing the deportation of illegal aliens. Okay, you have a right to be peaceful, but you don't have a right to commit violence. You can say stupid things. The First Amendment protects stupid. It doesn't protect violence and violence against government officials.
And they started to Santa Ana's credit, a lot of longtime Santa Ana residents came out and counter protested and stood by the cops. So
the same thing happened in Santa Ana in 1989 when they tried to do a gay pride protest, and residents of the working class town, including many Hispanic residents, blocked the street and said, "You are not parading in our city." And the police said, "Well, they got a permit for the parade." He said, "We ain't leaving." The police said, "They ain't leaving. You better leave," to the gay pride people. But
Okay.
the congressman of Santa Ana, Lou Correa, said everything was fine in spite of the violence. And he said that the Santa Ana chaos was brought on by federal presence. You see, the talking points of the Democrats is federal ICE agents doing their job are the crimes, not the crimes.
Yeah, right. And they all got the same memo. So talk to me about Senator Padilla. You saw
Oh
the
my
clip.
gosh. So some commentators are saying that he was drunk. So he showed up to a press conference of Kristi Noem. He's a U.S. senator, used to be the Secretary of State in California. Nobody knows who he is.
Right.
His name is Alex Padilla. He shows up to Kristi Noem's press conference drunk, it appears, and started charging toward her. And every cabinet member has security, right? We had to live in a nutty world. He's a U.S. senator. All he had to do if he really wanted information, Scott, was to send her a letter, schedule a meeting with her like senators do with cabinet members all the time, schedule a call. But he didn't want that. Since nobody knows who he is, he wanted to create a third grade temper tantrum and get some free media and then get interviewed by MSDNC and the crazy left-wing media to try to gin up his ignorant and low IQ supporters to support him more fervently. But he charged her. I mean, what kind of a man would charge a woman physically? That's kind of dangerous, even without our security stuff.
And he's not a small dude. The guy looks like he's 6'2" or 6'3", and a couple 100 pounds.
Well, did you see what security did to him, Scott?
And he just muscled him right out of the room, and I heard him yell in the outside room that, by the way, for those of you that haven't seen this clip, it's really good. Go ahead and Google it, or it's on X. But, he basically starts yelling at Kristi Noem, our Homeland Security Secretary and chief, and starts yelling at her and wants to ask her questions. And right away, the security just muscles him out of the room. Outside in that outer room, he's kind of, "Get your hands off me!" And then all of a sudden, the next thing you see, he's got his hands up and he's walking peacefully down the corridor where they probably booked him. But I think he had to go to Club Fed, don't you?
Well, they tackled him on the ground and handcuffed him.
They didn't show
And
that
then
in
he
the clip.
immediately had a press conference as soon as he was released from custody to just do political grandstanding absent of any substance or truth.
So what can he say at his press conference? I'm right, she's wrong. They wouldn't let me speak. Free speech issues.
It
Mr. Trump.
wasn't his press conference. He should call his own press conference as if anyone would show up or listen, right?
No. You're talking logic. I'm talking about what he said at the press conference. You know he was going to lie.
He was just trying to interrupt her. He wasn't trying to do anything useful.
And I'm curious as to what kind of questions he's going to ask her. It's like, your ICE agents are causing these riots. It's kind of like, what planet do you live on? A lot of people on social media are out there saying, keep it up, guys. It's the best advertising you can have for the GOP in 26. We are going to clean
Well,
up.
Scott, Padilla is not the only Democrat who's engaging in criminal activity. Governor Gavin Newsom has threatened to withhold federal tax payments. And I'm not quite sure how he would do that because we pay federal taxes directly to the federal government, not to Gavin Newsom to submit it to the federal government.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, aren't you going to write a check to Newsom instead of the IRS because he knows better than you?
No, I'm not. And the Treasury Secretary called Newsom's threat tax evasion and suborning and conspiring to engage in tax evasion.
He was asking to be arrested. Maybe he wants to be arrested for tax evasion. I always wondered how he can afford that $10 million house on the coast on his salary. Was he evading taxes?
And Scott, you know who they were arresting? Murderers, gang members.
Rapists.
In fact, 12 of LA's worst illegal alien criminals were part of those ICE raids.
Just look at it from a common sense standpoint. If you were Karen Bass and you actually wanted what's best for your constituents, which we know she doesn't, she wants what's best for her. She doesn't care about the constituents. Let's be clear. But if you really did want to do that, you wouldn't be a sanctuary city, right? When these morons get out of jail, these rapists, these murderers, these evil, evil people, and you had a way to keep them off your streets by just calling up ICE and dropping a dime on them, wouldn't you do that in spite of sanctuary laws? I mean, I don't know what common sense this defies. I don't get it. I know the Democrats.
The point here is the Democrats' approval rating in a recent poll this week is down to 21% approval and 70% disapproval. So they're not advocating for any policies that almost anyone wants. So they have to create political theater and antics to try to create fake outrage because they're a fake party with fake ideas, bolstered by their fake news allies. So who's paying for the riots? Scott, we talked about it earlier. Mike talked about the Coalition for Humane Immigration Rights, which sadly got money from both the Chinese Communist Party and our federal government. But Senator Josh Hawley is launched an investigation into the people that are funding these riots. And Trump has asked the IRS agents to find out who is funding these riots. Kash Patel.
Like our conversation that we had with Josh Hoover, our assemblyman, when they give grants, they don't just say, here's the money, good luck. They have strings attached. They have to, and it's part of, the so-called oversight, which obviously they're not exercising any oversight, but there's usually legal documentation. They're supposed to be using that money for a particular, for particular uses, or else they wouldn't have gotten the grant. So they violated their contracts more than likely. I want to see somebody go to jail. And frankly, if the people that misuse the money aren't going to go to jail, then I want to see the federal employees that are responsible for monitoring those contracts and grants to go to jail. Somebody has to go. Well, if certainly the federal employee, if he's in league with the guy, he needs to go to jail too. But if they did something unbeknownst to him, okay, the grantee has to go to jail. But I'm okay throwing the federal employee out to jail too.
Well, speaking of going to jail, a panicked California Governor Gavin Newsom was calling on ICE Director Tom Homan to arrest him for obstructing what was going on in deporting illegal aliens.
Okay,
Newsom
so
wants to be arrested.
it's political theater, right? Okay, so if you were Homan, what would you do? Would you make him a martyr and arrest him?
I think that they would be wise, and you would make sure your case is airtight before doing it.
I agree. So if you could get him for causing an insurrection, if you could get him for funding the rioters, either through his political campaign
It'd be
or
more likely that he was just obstructing police arrests or something more straightforward, I think.
well, he's too inept to actually clandestinely help these guys. He would be figured out in a heartbeat. But when the recall happened, one of the things that occurred when you have recalls is that you have unlimited campaign contributions. So he's got a political organization that has literally millions of dollars in it that he did not spend on the recall that he can choose to spend for other political issues and reasons. But I know we're coming to the end of our show.
All right. Well, Scott, there's a couple more things we should bring to the audience's attention that they might not know. Santa Ana didn't just have the stupid riots, but they had a stupid graduation speech by their stupid head of the school board in the Santa Ana Unified School District. He told graduates to burn down the system. He's a Soros-funded lunatic and Soros-funded community organizer. And he's publicly identified himself as, quote, queer youth organizer of color with he, him pronouns.
Why isn't he in jail for inciting a resurrection? These guys have all done more actual crimes in regards to insurrections than just about any of the January 6th protesters.
Well, and for our Northern California audience, we don't want to ignore you. We talked a lot about Los Angeles and Santa Ana, but sadly, Fisherman's Wharf is dying in San Francisco. And for those of us who are old enough to have gone to San Francisco when you could actually go there as a tourist, Fisherman's Wharf was one of the spots you would go to, the Ghirardelli chocolate factory and restaurant, and all the fresh fish that you could get on Fisherman's Wharf. And a lot of those restaurants and businesses are shutting down, Scott, thanks to the crime, the drugs, and the overregulation by California's Democrat supermajority.
And the human excrement and the needles and all the other stuff. Yeah, in fact, I would say it's already dead. It just doesn't know it yet. Everybody hasn't closed their door yet, but they're on their way.
But San Francisco has become an uncivilized, primitive place of degradation. And the Democrats are solely to blame.
Yeah, it used to be they put out a vacancy sign by hand written on, cardboard or whatever in the front window, and that apartment would be gone by the end of the afternoon. Now they've got actual vacancies, and the vacancy rates are going up. And the retail stores are leaving town, and the businesses and all the offices are going out of there too. So yeah, it's dying also. Hey, blue policies, they're inept. They cannot run anything. Newsom cannot run anything.
Democrats can't run a 2-car funeral, Scott.
Karen Bass, I got to tell you, as an architect, and we're doing work in some of the fire burnout areas, the city of Los Angeles is inept. They said they were going to issue permits quickly. You know what? They are not even close to issuing them.
How many permits have they issued, Scott, today?
Well, I haven't counted, but it was only about 4 weeks ago, when the answer to that question was 0.
Wow.
They've issued some cleanup, but building permits, no, they just haven't issued any of them.
Well, and Scott, for the benefit of our audience, the reason is they want to not allow these wealthy homeowners to rebuild their land. This is very high dollar residential real estate, some of the most expensive real estate in Southern California. And they want to build low income housing there. Why, Scott? They hate rich people, they hate success, but also they want more dependent illegal aliens and dependent people on government checks that will vote for them.
Yeah, we didn't even get into that, and our time is up. We didn't even get into the impact that illegal aliens have on the census, which drives representation. And California has probably 3 to 5 seats that it shouldn't have now. And by the time 2030 census rolls around, that number is likely to climb to 13. Now, that means that 13 extra seats come to California that shouldn't be here. They should be in other states. Most of those would be red states, Tennessee being one of them.
Well,
Because
guess
they
what, Scott? The Republicans aren't going to count illegal aliens in the next census. They're only going to count citizens.
I sure hope that's the case. They filed a lawsuit to try and do that this time, and Biden won because
They're just going to do it. They're just going to do it and say we're counting citizens, and that's how we're certifying it. And you're out of luck if you don't like it.
So you're listening to California Free Radio, where we like to say we're bringing you truth and freedom behind the blue curtain in California. And we need your help if you're even outside California. And if you're planning to leave California, we want you to consider sticking around because we still think it's worth fighting for. We come on the air at 6:30 every Thursday live. Well, except for Kurt, he kind of looks dead. So, Kurt, what do you say? Close out.
Thank you for joining us today. We want to invite you to join us again next week at 6:30 California time. And if you're on the East Coast, that'd be 9:30 your time. And we'll have more to say and more crime and stupidity to expose on what's going on in California. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.
California Free Radio at TaxFighter7 and also
at nettermike.com on X.
No.com, just at Netterbike. See the scrolling page. All right, goodbye, everybody.